Well, welcome back to the podcast that still doesn't have a name, despite it being on its second episode now. It's Fiend and I yet again, along with Wumbo this time from Taken Kings, who are taking a lot right now in Element One,
Yeah,
for sure.
we're taking more than we're giving, that's for sure.
But man, how are you doing today? What's going on with you?
Oh, just another day in the life. We got an OCS game, I believe at 6 East, right after this, so I mean I'm ready for that. I guess Rai might not be able to show up. We got another player with some adventures that's going on apparently, but otherwise pretty good day so far.
I feel like I've seen more games with you subbing in than like with the core five actually playing at this rate. I know it's been like the span of like 3 or 4 weeks, but
I think like for the past little bit, I've seen Outlast with more like play more with subs than with like the full roster. Because like you played Game Rogue with you.
Yeah.
Space was in Element 1 quals. And then he was in like the SSG ACAD game, I think.
Yep. It's a lot of subbing, and like that's the tough part about this game, and like especially with the Element One scheduling, it is pretty brutal because you could put in your availability, but at the end of the day, it's gonna be if you're necessarily not available at a time, but you can all still be there, like you'd have to skip something, they're gonna schedule you there. So it is what it is, and last second things happen all the time. I love playing the game. It's not a problem for me. I feel bad for my teammates more than anything because I'm like, I feel on edge. I feel like I make a mistake and be like, oh, this effing Wumbo guy. Like, where's Vipoa?
Yeah.
Where's Rai? But
has that?
I love it.
I am kind of curious though. Like, does that ever affect the calling or anything? Do you kind of take over as the caller, or are you just kind of like the soldier? You're like, you guys tell me what to do. I'm just here to like fill in as best I can.
I'd say I bring a lot more structure to us, like in the mid and late round. I'd say when I play, like I'm very fine details kind of guy in the late round. Like, all right, I'm holding this, play off my contact. All right, this is our gaps and stuff like that. That's a little less common when it's the full five. Obviously, they still do it, but I feel like I'm a little more assertive with that kind of thing. So I wouldn't say I necessarily take over IGLing ability or anything like that.
Okay.
I make calls every once in a while.
Yeah.
I think that's like the most difficult things with subs is like everyone has like their own unique take on the game, and just one person like switching out even just like roles, not even players. Like the first team I played for, we started off with me as the first entry, and I played really, really aggressively, like just like Ash, R4C, Hollow, just walk at him. And then we switched entries at one point to a dude called Sam, and he was a lot more passive than I was, so he slowed down a lot just from like the one role change. And then like like with especially with some of the players on like Taken Kings, like you go from like someone who could be like a lot more aggressive to like Wumbo, and it's not like a shit can being replacing someone who's really good so much as it's like you have like aggression replaced with like good vocality and like sensibilities, which isn't a bad change, but it certainly affects the play style.
Well, right, and especially when I had to go in for Vipoa in the E1 game. I mean, that was like, I'm not, I don't like to pick favorites or anything, but in my opinion, Vipoa by far on any given day has the most potential to drop one of those big games. But Scoob stepped right into that Vipoa role, and that's the beautiful part is that they can both just kind of take over that Ayana role and kind of just walk at people. That's been a challenge for us as a team, though. It's because Scoob and Vipoa, to me, it seems like they have more of their own ideology of things, and they're very fast-paced players, And before E1, it wasn't really exploited for us, we didn't really realize it. It was, we were having really good scrims, and we didn't really have any problems. But now that we started facing, more regular competition, we've realized there is a little bit of a divide in playstyle. So we're kind of switching some things up, poking and prodding. We've had some people in slumps, the team in general in a slump. But yeah, like you said, with that aggression mix, it's a hard thing to balance with any set of players, really. It really comes down to what's most comfortable for everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So one conversation topic that Aka wanted to delve into was, your transition from player to coach, because it is not an uncommon one. It's one that I actually almost made after I was dropped from Mystic Whites. But, you've gone from, like, player to coach with first a team that made it relatively far in the major quals, and then a team that was invited to Element 1, right? So you've had kind of, like, a meteoric rise. Kind of, like, how has that kind of been for you individually?
It's been challenging for myself mentally. I will say there was a lot of times where after I left Somali Pirates and I was on 1 HP for a couple weeks and then I ended up on Taken Kings, there was a lot of self-doubt there for a while of okay, everyone's believing in what I'm saying and everyone's validated that I'm a good coach, but at the same time there was that self-doubt that's like I haven't done this enough to know if I'm doing this the right way. That was the main reason why like I purchased the Yardy coaching when I was fairly new to coaching, and he ran me through a lot of things and reinforced a lot of the mental habits that I have. It really is it's hard because at the same time I do miss playing to an extent, and I've had opportunities on this team, so I get my itch scratched a little bit every once in a while with that, but
Yeah.
there's nothing more satisfying than you telling someone, all right, this is what we need to fix, this is how we're going to fix it, and then like that, it's
Right.
done. For me, that topped anything I dealt with as a player. I will say, sitting in these calls during these E1 games, I feel the same amount of intensity sitting there watching than I did when I was in the game playing in anything. So, the adjustment itself in a wider spectrum, not too big, but for me, myself, it has been very, I would say challenging.
Yeah.
I gotcha. So one one thing that I did some coaching. It was never like officially announced, but I did some coaching between Mystic White and Cast Nation, and it was a very weird transition, which might have been because I had players that weren't like great, but like I think one of the big things that like I had to learn was like you're not like. I almost felt like I wanted to get them to need me like as little as possible, if that makes sense. Like I'm trying to teach you things so you don't have to come to me to learn things. And it sounds counterintuitive, but I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't like necessarily realize is like if your coach is like having to talk constantly, something probably isn't going very right.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of your work is like done outside of game.
Right. And that's a thing where it's like you got to make it very incremental and stuff like that. Like you got to make sure it's short-term successes that lead to long-term goals. It's a process, and that's the thing is when you're working with, and I feel like I was spoiled right off the gate. I joined Somali Pirates. I know they're not a roster anymore. I know they weren't the greatest roster ever, but I never had to deal with like a T4 team necessarily or like a bottom of the barrel. Yeah. And like I guess that's where I'm sympathetic to like these lower tier coaches, because in my opinion, it's really hard to work out of those areas because a lot of those players just don't have the mindset to learn those things from you. There's some people that have it and some people that don't, really, at the end of the day.
It is quite the experience, like, sitting down, watching around, knowing exactly what happened, and telling your players how to fix it, and then just watching them all agree, then not do it. Which is an experience I've had more than once on multiple rosters.
I am curious, though, just out of curiosity, like, what does success and like what does a successful day look like for a coach with that incremental improvement? Like, is it always something tangible, or like what does it look like?
I'd say very little things in coaching in this game are actually tangible, in my opinion. It's more of an opinionated game in terms of successes, in my opinion, on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
For example, I make points of focus every day for my players when we go into scrims, and it's usually 3 to 4 points of what I want to focus on today, and it's usually something that we're going to need to use on game day in a couple days or something like that. Setting these goals with the opponent in mind that we have coming up. But they could be something as simple as have some fun today, like just have a good time, have some laughs in between rounds. Because if I notice the night before we got somebody who's mumbling under their breath everything they're saying and they're not having a good time, that's going to impact us more than any little microcom problem could, because at that point you have a player that's totally out of it. So it's not always something huge. Most of the time it's actually very simple things, especially when I'm working with players like on Taken Kings, where they're all very smart players. They don't need hard direction in a lot of areas. They just need to be reminded to do the small things more often.
I've always maintained that I think the teams that can utilize the coaches the best are the ones that are very self-sufficient without one. It's like, if you need me to be telling you things like, don't reload in the open, or like, like drone in your entries, you're not going to get anything out of the coaching because there's so much that you need to learn. But if you already have a very good fundamental basis that the coach can build off of, that's when they're really kind of able to shine.
Exactly.
And I think that is part of the reason that it was a little bit awkward when I first like really tried coaching was I had players who needed a lot of very fundamental things taught to them.
Yeah.
Like there was a player, Shifty, who is retired now and working on an org, but like the first thing he told me was his aim was bad. And then I watched him scrim and it's like, your aim's fine, just don't position yourself like an idiot, man.
Right.
And like it's a very fundamental thing that like he just didn't know because he hadn't had the opportunity to like hear from someone who is better than him. Like that, I was the first person who had the experience that I had that had talked to him about it. But you know, like you said, you kind of were able to jump over that, and like just like through kind of getting to know people in kind of like T3 space through coaching. You know, you got to 1HP and then into Taken Kings.
I am curious though. Is there ever a challenge like getting players to respect your authority? Like the common challenge that a lot of casters or analysts face is like, oh, you didn't play competitive, you didn't play pro. How can you tell us Twitch viewers, how this player screwed up this round by like missing this utility or missing this position? Like, is there a challenge as a coach to like get player respect, or generally if they bring you on, they're like willing to listen and kind of give it a shot, as it were?
I wouldn't say I've never been directly challenged in such a way where it's like you didn't play where I've played. How can you tell me? Because at that point, either one, if I had the authority over the rest of the players, that guy is not playing for my fucking team anymore.
Yeah.
Or
Yep.
two, I'm off of that team and I'm going to find another opportunity with people that respect me.
Yeah.
I have had microcosms though of that kind of situation, especially on Somali Pirates. I don't know if you know Senpai or Taufik at all in a more broader light, but he's a very aggressive person, a very interesting personality.
Yeah. Whenever you said microcosms, that thing, that was actually the first time I thought of was Senpai. But I think that's like one of the big things is like you don't, in my opinion, you don't bring someone on, whether it's a player or support staff, if you don't trust them.
And Senpai respected me a lot. The problem with it was the respect amongst each other kind of thing.
Right.
And sometimes like in smaller decisions they didn't want to give me a say, or like bigger decisions they didn't want to give me a say, and that was frustrating to me.
Right.
Because I felt I had earned a say with my work throughout that time. That's only the only real thing I really went through in terms of that. Otherwise, when I was on 1HP, I did feel like there was times where I didn't feel respected, but I fault myself that myself more for that now looking back. I realized that I maybe didn't put in enough. I didn't put myself out there enough the couple weeks I was there. I didn't really give them a reason to respect me. The more I look back on it, they listened to me fine and everything. It just didn't feel like they really were invested in what I was saying, and that turns back on me is what I've realized over time. I have a lot of respect for the guys on 1HP. Never had a problem with any of them.
Yeah.
The direction just wasn't where I was wanting to go. I knew the whole situation was Kirk was coming up with E1 coming up, and it seemed like it was going to be a very tumultuous time for them. Yeah. And to be totally honest, Cohen has so much of their respect. I felt like an afterthought there, and like I said, that also reflects back on me.
How do you think 1HP now Carnival is doing in E1? Like obviously you guys played against them for a game, but like also, if you've caught any of their matches other than that, like how do you think they've been doing since your time with them? Like how have they grown? How have they adjusted with the BGL pickup? Like, what are your thoughts there?
Man, I'll say when I was there, they were nasty, and it stayed tried and true. They're still nasty.
Yep.
I will say to the high hills, Twist is one of the best players I've seen in a long time. Twist, his ability is just so incredible, and what he brings outside of what you see on stream, what he brings in terms of comms, what he brings in terms of a team environment. Twist deserves T1 offers, in my opinion, to be totally honest.
I agree.
I can't really speak to how BJL's helped them. I've caught some of their games, but to be honest, I think they kind of just, from what I can see, they slid him into that Kirk role, and it's worked out fine. Kirk was very impactful on that role, and it seems like BJL has the same natural knack for it. So in my opinion, they made the right pick up there.
Yeah. From what I've seen from like people like Inky doing interviews, like they wanted someone who's very vocal because Kirk was an insanely vocal player. And they wanted someone with a lot of vocality, and that like is one of the main kind of things they've been hyping up BJL on, is being very vocal a lot in the ways that Kirk was, and so like I don't think he's as much of a natural fragger as Kirk was, but I think the vocality was more important in that position because you still have Aim Key and Twist on that team for your gunning, and it's not like Skunky and Big Guy or Sludges either. So
Skunky has been playing out of his mind, by the way. Credits to Skunky.
Oh yeah, no, like you have like 5 people on that, like you have like 2 people on that team who are like exceptional fraggers, and then 3 people who are really good fraggers, and so like they might have lost like a bit of fragging power, but I think in the end like the vocality was the main important thing that Kirk brought, just with kind of how they're performing with BJL.
And I'd argue from matchup to matchup, BJL to Kirk, they lost a little fragging power, but it's filled in by AMK stepping up.
Oh yeah.
It's filled in by those, Twist and AMK. They have a switch they can turn on, and they're in the building. They're shooting you, and there's nothing you can do about it sometimes. So, when you have that kind of firepower, you're going to be a dangerous team, even on bad days. So,
there is actually something interesting that I wanted to. I just remembered. I was having a conversation with a friend who was saying that the quality of IGLs has gone down, kind of with their logic being like you don't see a lot of teams with like natural, like in my opinion, like there are 2 kind of main types of IGLs, which are people like Ozone and Canadian who are like IGLs kind of by nature, like they are just leaders, right? That's what they do, and then you have some other people like Big Guy who are very like IGLs, but more out of like necessity. Yeah, like it wasn't really their natural thing before, but they kind of
someone needed to pick it up, so they take the hit and like they kind of follow through with that.
Because we were talking, and like there are a lot of teams that have like IGLs out of necessity rather than IGLs out of nature that kind of work. Like I think 1HP is a good example where I don't think Big Guy would be IGLing if they didn't need one, but like when you have Kirk and Twist and Aimkey, you don't really like need the greatest strategical depth when they're really good at gun go shoot. But I wanted to ask you, like, what's kind of your opinion on like that idea that like the quality of IGLing is kind of going down?
I actually have a pretty spicy take on this. Actually, I'll say I think after this wave of if R6 lives long enough, I'll preface with that. When everything kind of starts getting mixed up, I think the IGL is going to be a dying breed, an actual IGL, like a structured, full IGL. I feel like everywhere I see is it's like, even on like, on 1HP, like you said, Big Guy's like an IGL out of necessity. When I was there on game day, AMK was doing a lot of heavy lifting in terms of the IGLing. I won't even lie to you. AMK brings a lot more than people realize. Your cat is making you fight for your life.
She is.
Wow. I don't think that teams are going to be just going out hunting for an IGL. Like, I think it's going to be a lot more of that IGL by necessity, and I think we're going to kind of see that with JJ being LFT now. I think that's something we might realistically kind of already see come into play, that teams aren't going to be so willing to just bring in a fresh IGL or bring in somebody that wants to run the entire show.
Like, go ahead, Vin.
I also think it's just born out of necessity. Like, there's been such a drought of like good IGLs. Like, they don't very few and far between in the first place. And then like a quality IGL is even rare. And then a quality IGL that can level up and like keep up with the rest of the team, especially if you're moving up from like tier 4 to tier 3 to tier 2, is even harder to find. And then like to find an IGL that can go all the way up and then into tier 1, that's even more rare. Think about the IGLs that we've had come up, like Canadian from way back, like probably a Mr. B type figure is the only other one that's come up through the Challenger League system and like been brought on as an IGL since then. So like a lot of these teams
Poison deserves his chance now.
Oh no, I 100% agree. Like Poison's the next up, like without a doubt. But in my eyes, it's kind of like a lot of these teams are kind of realizing, hey, if we all talk, we don't need a dedicated IGL. Just because they needed to, because there's no good IGLs to pick up like at the level they're thinking. Like, for wildcard, who's an IGL out there in the wild that they can pick up that'll be at the calling level of JJ or like better or like a little bit worse but a bit more fragging or whatever. Like all these teams are kind of realizing, hey, we all have to communicate because like
me in wildcard, hit my DMs. I'm coming back.
Put me in. I'm in IGL now. Put me in.
I'm coming back. I'm putting the boots back on after one element, one performance.
But I think that I think that a lot of it is like with kind of the dissolution of T2 for a while, like I don't think there was as much of a need to have like a dedicated IGL or like an IGL by nature, because there wasn't like it's like in Challenger League, like there were quite a few of them from what I recall, but like when you don't have like when you don't have like as much of like the stakes of Challenger League, like you don't necessarily need to be like super sound strategically.
The other part of it is like being a dedicated IGL is like a career commitment, and like when there's nothing, when they just say 5-month off season and they don't give you any details about what's going on until 2 weeks before the qualifiers, why are you going to make a career change to like that'll hit your numbers when you don't even know if there's anything to compete for? I'd rather still frag out. Like people pick you up off numbers. Fuck it.
Like I did like the Mr. B coaching a little while ago, and he suggested that I like made the complete switch from entry to like flex IGL, right? But like at the same time, it's like, do people want that anymore, right? Because what I used to do a lot was like play like the primary entry and just shot call a lot for the early round for like the room clear, and that worked a lot. Like a lot of teams needed that, but like if you go to like complete like I'm the leader, I'm the IGL, like it's a very different commitment for a team to pick someone like that up, right?
And I'd argue that, you know, with how deep we are into the life cycle of Rainbow Six, almost every player that's been playing competitive for a while would be capable of stepping up into an IGL role.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like it's not necessarily a necessity anymore, because I feel like almost, you know, on any given team, like when I worked with 1HP and I've worked with Taken Kings, I have 5 players on both of those teams were capable of stepping up at any moment and calling a play.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. It's you know, and maybe, you know, maybe at T2, T1, or like, not T2, maybe at T1 level, we won't see this ripple effect as soon, you know, because there's a lot of veteran IGLs that obviously know what they're doing and people are willing to play into their systems. But I'd also argue down here at T3, T2, there's not a lot of respect for each other anymore, to the point where if you bring in an IGL, are you going to respect their calls? Are you going to respect them as a leader?
Yeah.
I don't think that's realistic anymore, unless it's a friend team, kind of like Wildcard was with JJ. I consider that to be like a friend team. They've been together a while.
Yeah.
I would kind of counter that by saying like, why are you picking someone up if you don't trust their calls?
I mean,
I think we could, like, I think it could genuinely go either way almost. Like, I think we will see some teams kind of rebuild more around like having IGLs out of like people who are IGLs by nature, because like those people aren't going to disappear, right? Like you're still going to have a lot of people like that, and there are quite a few of them who can still like frag out like with the rest of them even from that position. Like Mr. B, I think, is a perfect example.
He's not like a liability. He's not. I always go to like the extreme of Super is one end of the IGL spectrum, because he's like, really good tactically. And like with everything else, but as soon as you bring numbers into the equation, he gets a lot less appealing. But on the other hand, you get like a X set roster where it's like all 5 call, and like none of them take the hit, but you're also kind of not getting the same strategic depth as a result. And I'd almost argue like the no IGL scenario has kind of been run through T1 already with teams like X set and like kind of the hive minds. So.
What I find interesting about Exit, though, is they actually do have a more dedicated IGL now. Because that was a lot of the reason they brought in Iconic was they wanted a more dedicated IGL. But they also brought on Spoit largely because he is actually an excellent shot caller, along with being a very talented fragger. Like, I think a lot of the best teams right now are the ones where, like, you'll have, like, a central voice, but everyone will make calls along with that central voice, because you can no longer have like one guy who plays Thermite and doesn't get a kill every round but just calls really well. Like, the game is so kind of complicated now that like that system is, in my opinion, just throwing. But if you have like one guy who's like the min IGL, then everyone else is making calls to kind of supplement that, then I think that's like, at least right now, kind of the optimal system. But I could definitely, or I mean, really, that's also just kind of like what Wumbo was describing, like the one
Yeah.
really vocal guy, and then like everyone helps like pitch in.
Yeah.
And I think, we're at a point where, and I know a lot of people like to complain about this. I don't think it's necessarily a terrible thing. What people like to call the Call of Duty meta, or whatever. Where there's more rounds that are ending in kills now than ever, pretty
Yeah.
much. And especially with ops like Ace out, where you have the AK-12, you can't afford to just have someone that can't shoot their gun using one of the best guns in the game. Like that's just not a situation that's ideal. I'd argue a lot of teams at these lower levels, like, or I don't want to say lower levels. I mean, like the T2, T3 range, like, I think it's actually more beneficial to have some of your better shooters not on the entry role sometimes.
Yeah.
I'd argue, like Skunky shoots. I think Skunky shoots crazily. Like, I think he could definitely hop on an Ayana Ash role on almost any team. But, what he does is what his team needs, and it's beautiful and it's perfect, and he wins rounds off of it.
Like, something I see a lot of people kind of conflate, especially at lower levels, is that like mechanical skill equals entry. Like, I wouldn't really say the two are like
not tied at the hip. Like
they're typically correlated, but like it's not like causation. Like there are a lot of people like Skunky we're just talking about who are like supports by nature, but they're nasty. Like I wouldn't want to peek Skunky. Like he's terrifying. Or like when I was in Analyst for Leviathans, like we had proxies as like the hard breach like smoke player for a while. That guy was terrifying. Like he was the one player from that roster that I like truly feared to take like a one with, right? And I think like especially now, like it's becoming a lot more common to have like people who are more like support oriented players with really, really nasty mechanics.
I mean,
and like
you go.
It's like a conversation we've had on Taken Kings a couple times because, I mean, for the life of me, I have to force Scoob not to want to play Hard Breach every second of his life. He loves Hard Breach. He loves playing Smoke. But I mean, if we can get 16 kills out of him on Yana, why wouldn't we get 16 kills out of him on Yana?
Yeah.
But he loves that. So yeah, every once in a while we will throw Scoob on a Hard Breach, and yeah, he still performs great. I mean, it's what he loves to do. It's what he believes he's made to do. Even a conversation we had last night, like Vipoa wanted to move on to Flex for a scrim. Like, okay, let's try it. Like whatever. It doesn't. If everyone's comfortable with what they're doing, you can kind of sacrifice those more intricate, like, oh well, your Yana player doesn't have a 180k on grid shot. Like, okay, like whatever. If he knows when to take space and when to stop taking space and when to take fights and knows how to coordinate. That's what matters in an entry position. Because I'd argue getting traded 8 times in a game as an entry is just as impactful as getting 8 openings.
When I was like really in the trenches of T4 for a while, one of the there was a trial scrim I played where we were on Villa, and the team captain said, "Hey, like, could you just like walk at 90 for me so I get your refrag?" And I did it, right, and because that was my job. And after the scrum, he was talking about it as if I just made like the play of the century, and it was like it's the W key and I'm an entry, like. And I think a lot of people don't like it's actually a conversation with Runner early, like true entries. Like true first entries are very difficult to find. It's like there aren't a lot of people who are willing to just walk.
Yeah, because it's the same thing as support, but just on the other end of the spectrum is like support. You're not going to get kills because either you enabled your team so well that they're killing everyone, or you're in an unwinnable situation. There's like a 15-way crossfire that you're walking into, and like if you go 1 for 1 in that situation. Like you got one impactless kill, but the round's still over. And then like if you're a dedicated like tip of the spear hard entry, you're frag. You're not gonna frag as much because you're taking hardest shit fights, but you get traded, and that's the goal. So it's like
Yeah, and like that's why I think like if you look like Newers, I think I am of the opinion that when Newers was brought up to PL. He was not brain dead, but he was very brain dead adjacent. But he was willing to just walk, which was what they needed. That was right, because like Yaga and Kino couldn't do that, and so that ability, like he's much more intelligent now. He's gotten so much better, but even in the beginning, just his ability to just walk when they needed him was so impactful. And then like by the same token, they got a lot better with Dream because he was the hard support that they needed that they didn't have, right? And like I personally think that like this OXG lineup is the best that we've ever seen from them, partially or a lot because you have the people in the roles that they need. Thank you for eating my shirt. But I had we've had some, I'd say, pretty insightful and interesting conversations up to this point. So I had a fun question that I said I wanted to throw in around the halfway mark.
Yeah.
You know, we've all played comp here. We've all been LFT. We've all seen really, really weird things while we're LFT. We all have horror stories. I want to know yours, Wumbo, and Fiend as well, if you have
All
some.
right.
From
I mean,
back
I've
in
got
1957.
1957. Goddamn, how old do you think I am? That's like
Some
when I
horror
was 5.
stories. Well, I'll say I can give you kind of a twofer, I guess. I remember one time when I was in the depths of T4, you know, down in the bottom where there's unknown creatures, not even discovered by marine biologists. You know, and I hit this team up to try, or this team hit me up to try out, you know, yada yada. And at that point, I was trying out for literally anyone that would hit my DMs. Did not care anything about their team. And then it gets to be about scrim time, and I join VC, and they're all British, and it's a UK team, and yeah, that was a real eye opener that I should like really probably like clarify some things with people before I go and get ready for a scrim and join VC, and it's like a UK team. Otherwise, you know, this, and I guess this isn't really a personal horror story, but I guess it kind of is. I think it's everybody's horror story that's been in T4, but that legit guy or whatever his name is, that, oh my god, that effing guy, man. Like, I remember I fell for the trap one time and he had me try out through a 10-man. Like, they did a 10-man to try out, and it was fucking abysmal, and that guy is so weird.
I've never actually played with him, but when I was on Barrage, we scrimmed at one point, and he was live streaming the scrim without permission, but he was like coaching these 5 guys, and he was just going to replace the one that was worst, and he was giving callouts from the spectator perspective during the scrim, and we beat them like 7-4, I think, because he fucked up the 6-6.
And he puts in all of his resumes that he has like crazy T2 experience or whatever, and I just man. But I don't even think he's 18. He sounds like a little kid from when I talked to him. Or
I don't know. But when we scrimmed them, I was like 14-7, I think, which I only bring up because he messaged another member of my team later and said, "Hey, Ali has the worst rank stats. He's terrible. You should drop him and pick me up instead, because that'd make your team so much better than he does." And like, because like I was on a call with the dude he messaged when that happened, and he just started fucking cackling at like the idea of this dude just messaging him out of the blue and saying, "Hey, this guy, his rank stats are bad, so he's a bad player, and you should drop him."
Well, I sympathize with that because the amount of times when I was in T4 and I couldn't, like, I would get rejected tryouts or I would get like kicked out of tryouts because I'm not a ranked player. I suck at ranked. I'll be totally honest. Every season, it's without fault. I have like a 0.9 and I hit diamond. Like, I don't really care. I don't play the game. I don't play ranked like all day. I play 10-mans if they're out, and then that's the extent. And then. You know,
it's crazy.
Yeah, people put way too much. Like,
oh, you mean the Run at Them simulator? Yeah, dude. Like, I'm not positive in the Run at Them simulator. I'm trying out for hard support.
Watching this podcast for any effing reason, stop caring about rank stats. Care about intangibles and mindset, please, because you're not going to find Bolo with a 1.7 rank KD.
Record VODs.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there was a guy. I'm not gonna name him because we're on the podcast, but he reached out to me based off looking for player posts. And one of the things I specifically am asking for people right now is a VOD. Like, I want to see how you communicate. I want to see you work with your teammates. I want to see your attitude. Like, I want to watch you play.
Yeah.
And I asked him for a VOD, and he's like, "Oh, just go look through my Twitter. I have tons of clips on there."
Yeah.
You know, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a culprit of that because I remember I used to not have a VOD and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, just watch my comp clips video," and I just throw my comp clips video in their DMs, and then they're like,
someone did that as well. I thought like the Twitter, like if it's like a comp clips video, like at least you're doing it like in like scrims on a game day.
Somewhat.
But like this guy was like, "Yeah, bro,
environment.
just look through my Twitter."
It's ranked clips or casual for all that. You know, he tries to pull an Anthony Pitt on you. It's just like, "Yeah, dude, look at these awesome sauce clips," and it's like, yo, he just aced in casual, dude. It's like, on one hand, it's impressive. Like, you can't deny that it's not impressive. On the other hand, you're doing it in casual. Like, I'm talking about comp, you know, should probably be relevant to the environment we're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
you see some things when you're down there, man.
yeah, I think as far the worst LFT hard star I have is probably just like getting thrown in a 10-man. They arbitrarily slapped me on hard support, and then I had a clutch or some shit. Like had good stats, went positive as hard support in like this clusterfuck of a 10-man or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they're still like, all right, we've chosen our players. You're not here. And it's just like, bro, what did I have to do? Like, be the entry as a hard support, drone myself in and the Ash. Like, I don't even know what the expectation was. But I am pretty lucky because I usually just used my connections to people after I got on a few teams and like talked to people to get on to my next team or see where openings were, which was much more effective, frankly, than the LFT system. And like also, like, you know, a vouch is always going to be better than like just some random dude cold calling you, because cold calls have a low success rate. Let me tell you from personal experience, just reaching out to people blindly, it does not work out a lot.
I think there is a way to do it.
Oh yeah, you can up your chances. It's just like even at the best of times, it's going to be like a 1 in 3 chance if you squeeze every last like perfectly worded approach correctly, have a good reputation. All this stuff, you do it all right, like you still have a 1 in 3 chance or whatever, and like I'm just pulling that number out of my ass.
A lot of like the teams that I've played for like have been like cold calls, right? Like that was how I got on Mystic Light. Was I just got a DM from like Cloudy one day, where she's like, yeah, we're looking for like an entry to complete like the players we have, like you want to try out, or like Barrage. The Oregoner was like, hey, I'm trying to put like a team together, you know, to grind for CL, but like. There's like a right and a wrong way, right? Because if like a lot of people like just like when you're LFT give you very vague messages. Like I've gotten like 3 from this one guy where it's just like you want to try out and nothing else, just nothing.
Right.
And it's like what role are you looking for? Do you want me to IGL?
Right.
Like
and
give me information.
When you go, and even sometimes you go in like you kind of have an expectation, and then sometimes you get in there and your expectations like totally flipped. Like they tell you, oh, you're IGLing the way you're IGLing. That's not what we need. We need something else. And then it's like, okay, all right, well. But I wanted to connect a little bit of this conversation like back a little bit, because what was funny to me is there was so many instances where I would be, you know, I would hit up like players that were a lot better than me when they were LFP. Like I'd hit up like, you know, like for example, like Ozone, like when like Lycus would be LFP back in the day, or I'd hit up like just literally anybody regardless of their tier. Like I was shooting shots, I was sending paragraphs, I was begging to get me in for a tryout pretty much. And then what really cracked me up was the big flip when I went LFT as a coach after Somali Pirates, and then all those people were in my DMs asking me to come coach their team, and I was like, now that's satisfying. Well, I'm like, now that's like they ignored me, they egoed me, and now they're DMing me to come coach their team.
I mean, I think like the big thing is like, so like I'm building a team with Jin right now. For those who don't know, and like we were talking about coaches, because you know we want one at some point, because the purpose of the roster is like specifically Element 2, right? And it would just be beneficial to have one, but like. There was one person we could come up with that's a coach that was not on a team that we like both had full trust in, because a lot of them like aren't very good.
Oh, I'll tell you. Yeah, I was about to say, I don't want to take over the interview, but man, I was about to say we need to talk about some of these coaches that are just getting willy-nilly thrown into things that they don't deserve to be in. Like I don't mean to be a, you know, maybe that's my heady take of the day, but a lot of these coaches that people are picking up, I've never heard of, never seen. I guess you could have argued the same for me 6 months ago, but...
I mean, like, you had, like, the result... Like, I think the reason that you got DM'd by so many people after Somali Pirates was you got reasonably far into the major quals.
Yeah.
And you didn't even, like, bomb out once you got to Phase 2. Like,
you just didn't play.
Like, yeah, like, like, it wasn't... Like, there was, like, something there that people could kind of see because of that. But, like, a lot of people get picked up as a coach just because, like, you know, they're a coach. And, you need, and the team, like, needs one. But, like, I still think, like, a lot of teams would benefit, like, less from trying to find a coach and more from just, like, learning to solve those problems by themselves, right? Because like you're like having worked with you directly, like you're a good coach. Even though you said it was like an off day, what you still provided very valuable feedback, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like quite frankly, you'd be useless on Taken Kings if they had tons and tons of fundamental issues, because you'd
Yeah.
be so busy trying to like baby them that you couldn't get any actual work done. Like when I was on Unaludio was the team I was coaching. I spent so much time trying to get them to talk like mid rounds that there was
Yeah.
no time for strategy or like real like nitty gritty player development, because it's like, guys, say words, please, I beg of you.
Right. And
Right? It's
I'll
like,
even say, like, I don't want to like dump on somebody. Like, I'm not gonna say any names or anything, but like when I was doing like my coaching sessions, for like $5 free, whatever people wanted to pay me, I did one with a team, and like at one point I told them like, hey, like when you get man advantage, try to establish crosses, say like play
yeah,
off my contact. They didn't even understand that as a concept.
yeah,
Oh,
and
So that was like
yeah,
that like I had to re-explain it like 3 different times to get them to like kind of grasp what I mean by play off my contact, or I'll play off your contact, those types of phrases. They didn't
hmm,
understand those on even a baseline level.
yeah,
So like you said, it really, like, there's a point where you need a coach, and then there's a point where you just need to naturally improve.
yeah.
and
And even
like
That's what
like,
I'd argue.
there's
These like Metafy coaches or these Fiverr coaches, like they could help you with those kind of things. Like
yeah,
that Chaos guy or whatever on Twitter. Like I'm sure if you hired him for like an hour session
I
and you weren't very good, he could teach you a bunch of things.
yeah.
like, yeah. So I've actually worked with him several times, and he is, I think, hands down the most helpful person I have ever had the opportunity of working with. I absolutely think could be like a tier 1 coach if you wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
like,
think they've set up like a great business, honestly, just from the
oh
outside
yeah,
looking in. It
Yeah.
looks
no, he
like
has.
he's got a solid proof of concept, like, and
He's the number 1
product
coach on
to make
Metafy.
money. Yeah.
But like if you have that attitude to naturally improve on your own, that's a lot of what coaches look for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I can tell you, like if I can just straight up tell you to your face, you did this wrong, and you take that as, okay, well, how do I do it better? That's what I'm looking for,
Yeah.
right? Because there's
Right.
so many people, like, because I tend to be very blunt with criticism, because I always tend to be like, just tell me what's going wrong. Like I want to know, I want to get better, so I try to deliver it like that. And a lot of
Mhm.
people get really, really defensive,
Oh yeah.
like whenever, and it's like, I can't help you, right? But if like I tell you, you should not have positioned yourself like that in this round, like that was a throw, and they take that as, okay, well then what do I do better? Like how can I not fuck up like that again? That's what I'm
Mhm.
looking for. And so if you have a team that can naturally work through its issues and self-reflect like naturally without a coach, that team, that attitude, that's what coaches want.
Yeah.
Right. And like there's there's examples of people, like it's the same with sports. Like talent will get you so far up until it won't get you any farther
Yeah.
because you're not putting in the work. Like, and I don't think he plays the game anymore, so I'll just name drop him. Like on Somali Pirates, Vazdex. Like I did everything in my power to get that guy to stop just swinging literally anything he could find to swing, and it didn't work. I teamed with him as a player for a couple weeks after that. Same problem. We got in arguments when we were teaming together for those couple weeks. There was a point where, and like it shows through because now he doesn't play the game. He quit the game after that team. It comes to a point where you can tell either someone doesn't want to be playing the game anymore, or they just don't care about the game. And those are the kinds of people you just have to say, well, go do your own thing. That's not my issue. I'm not going to sit here and convince you to play Rainbow Six Siege and have a good time.
I ran a team called Paradigm for forever. It was the first team that I actually like ran, and eventually just kind of had to like step away because like everyone will tell you like, oh, like I want to be in CL, when I
That's what everyone
join a team,
says
like,
right
I
up
wanna,
until you got to go
right?
through the motions.
But then like you try to push them through it, and they're like, you're making me work too hard, or like, why are you only telling me things I did wrong? It's like, you asked for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You wanted to get better. Like this is what you asked for. I'll say with wanting to be in CL, it was like a lifelong dream of mine. Like from when I started playing, like on Xbox, like I'm like, I want to play on the mainstream. I want to be on the mainstream. Like that would be sick. And then like, Element One approached, and like obviously I'm a coach. So, like I'm not on the stream. It's not as direct. Like I was very proud of myself that I have this opportunity. I was very, and now it's like like a week or two later, it's like it's an afterthought to me that I even made Element 1, and now it's like I'm sitting here stressing out because we're on 2 losses. Like it's like it's an afterthought that this is even Element 1 anymore. And like every once in a while I have to kind of take myself out of it and be like, hey, yeah, things aren't going the best right now, but we've made it here. And I have to remind my players of that too. We were good enough to be invited. We have a good base. We're just at a bad point right now.
And
that's
that
just
definitely
time.
there was for everyone who's invited, by the way. Even Wildcard, even though they're not in like a super hot spot right now, like they were good. You were good at some point, right?
Yeah.
And you just kind of like, how do we
get back there? Or like carry the boats, for instance. Yeah, but
speaking of 2 losses,
we should probably go into those.
I VOD reviewed one of them earlier, specifically for this, and that was the 1 HP game because the other one was not on, or the other 2 were not on YouTube. But there were a lot of tack timeouts in that game, which is, I think, something like a lot of people don't necessarily know what goes on in those. So kind of as a coach, what's the approach you like to take to tack timeouts?
Well, I'm a big advocate as a coach of I think you can easily overload people. You don't want to give people too much. That was a big weakness of mine when I first started coaching. I used to do notes for every single scrim, and they used to be paragraphs on paragraphs of points. And I realized that hey, nobody wants to sit down and read this after they get shit on. And it's the same situation in attack timeout. You don't want to sit there and give them. I don't even use the full 60 seconds because I want them to utilize it themselves to an extent. I take the first 30 to 40 seconds and I pick out the biggest problem we have, the problem that I've identified has lost us multiple rounds, and I drill it in and I give us a clear-cut way to fix it, and then I say, discuss how we want to move forward. I give them that last 20 seconds to discuss their plans for the next upcoming rounds. It really does depend, though. Like, I'll tell you right now, if I was allowed, I mean, we can get into this real quick. I tried to take a tack timeout in the game the other day against, fuck, I'm blanking so hard right now. My brain, Outlast.
There we go.
I love those guys. Don't know how I forgot their team name. I coached 2 of them before, but either way, I tried to take a tack. Apparently, I put it in the wrong channel. I don't want to start drama with Element 1. It was the same channel I put my tack timeout in the first week, and I was told it was perfectly fine, regardless of the situation. I'll tell you, I would have took all 60 seconds of that tack timeout, and I would have ripped into them. I'll tell you that right now, because that's what they needed. They were all pussyfooting around, for lack of a better term. They were being sad. They didn't seem like they were ready to turn it up. They needed somebody to yell at them. Regardless of the situation, it's very, you got to read the situation is how I look at it. It's there's various situations. Tack timeouts are a beautiful thing in the game because it gives you that opportunity to stop that momentum. And I think Siege is very momentum based.
Out of curiosity, when is the best time to take a tack timeout? Like, not just about the content in a tack timeout, but like, when should you? Because we've seen like the Lycan timeout was infamous because like it's just like right before match point or it's on match point. That's when you take the timeout. Or is it? I think it was Trips Mirage was taking a timeout at the 2-round mark, no matter what was going on. Like there's all kinds of methodologies. Like what's your take on when you should take a timeout?
I'm a mixed bag type of guy. I guess it really depends on what's going on. Like we played a Dilemma in OCS or whatever a couple weeks back, and they had Marmalade and Stop or whatever his name is subbing in. And we were down 0-2 on a team defense. And at that point, I said, this is enough. I've seen enough. We need this timeout right now because we weren't doing the fundamentals right, and we're down 0-2 on theme defense. In that situation, in my opinion, that warrants a timeout. Now, like with Outlast, I was trying to call my timeout when it was match point. I believe it was 6-2 or 6-3. I was trying to call it at that point because at that point, up to that point, we went down, I think it was 0-3 on the defense, but I seen something in our defenses that told me we were going to get these next couple defenses. I heard them talking, I heard their adjustments, and we did pull through a couple defenses. At that point, I wanted to take that tack on the match point because I thought, okay, they're all down on themselves. This is the time where we light the fire. This is the time where we're on the edge of we're on the plank, we're about to jump off. This is our time to light the fire and put ourselves back in the game. Otherwise, I'm a real big, just like, I think it can literally be any time in a broader spectrum, but I'm a big middle of the game guy. I think it's you switch sides. Like, let's say you attack first, you switch on to defense, you lose that first defense. That's attack if we're down already. just to give them the time to, because I understand it as a player. When you switch from attack to defense or vice versa, sometimes it gets to be a little lost on them sometimes.
Yeah.
Big change, especially if you're down,
people underestimate like just how bad the transition from side swap is. Like, and it's also why people get a little confused or a little down on themselves, where it's like, oh, I only had one good half this game. It's like, bro, it's literally a different game.
We only got 2 defense rounds. Like, so what? Go win 4 attacks.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So, like, one thing that I kind of think is very valuable in tag timeouts is sometimes they'll call on and they'll just say, take like 15 seconds, just breathe. Like, just don't think about the game, dissociate, stare at the wall, whatever you have to do. Just breathe, get yourself in the good headspace, and then let's talk about tactics. Because I think a lot of the time, it's not like tactics going wrong, but like people going wrong, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And I think like being able to recognize that is also very valuable for tag timeouts.
Yeah, and you won't win a game if someone's all down on themselves, and it creates a ripple effect. And I've seen it most dramatically on like SP, where like Weston, for example, great player, great vibe, but if someone around him starts to deteriorate mentally, it dominoes onto Weston, and then it dominoes onto other people. And when you have players like that, where you have to know your players, you have to know if these people are very dependent on the attitudes of people around them. You have to know, and obviously there's situations where, you have a shitty day in real life. You're going to have bad days outside of Siege. Yeah. At the end of the day, we're all playing a video game. As much as we love it, as much as we want to win, if if your dog got ran over by a car earlier in the day, I'm not going to expect you to come into scrims all chirpy and joking around, There's things that happen, but at the end of the day, if you don't have those external things and you're kind of coming in all sad and down on yourself, like, at that point you shouldn't be playing the game, in my opinion.
That's a mentality fix, and that there's nothing about the game or like competing that can fix that. I do want to transition this just a little bit because we're running out the 50.
I have one more question. What's your favorite thing that like you've called like when you did attack timeout? Like the first words out of your mouth were just like something like kind of outlandish. Because I have one that I can think of immediately, but I want like yours.
Well, I don't know if necessarily attack timeout, but I will say every Element 1 game we've had so far, I've given a very inspiring speech beforehand. Very yelling, very, like the first Element 1 game, I was like, God damn it, we've worked all of our time on Siege to get to this point, and it's up to you how you use it. And I was screaming in their ears, and I'm like, this is our time, like, this is now, like, even game day 3, I guess it was kind of bad because I kind of forgot carry the boats as a team, but I'm like, who's going to carry the boats and the logs? You're going to carry the boats and the logs, like, you're going to do it. Stuff like that. I love doing stuff like that, getting the players pumped before the game.
I mean, you could argue, and I'll say this at the expense of carry the boats, but it's funny, so I'm doing it. You could say that they need someone carrying them because clearly something is going wrong on that camp too.
Who's going
to carry the boats?
Not any of the players on the team, clearly.
So what I was
maybe Spiker, but
was during day 2 of 1 quals, I've been doing manual labor all morning, so like every bone in my body felt like it was filled with ants. So I was coaching while Shifty played. And like it was like round 4 on border, we were like 2-2, and they just threw like a 4v2 because they all just kept peeking, and I just said call attack timeout. But as soon as it was called, just the first thing I said was, guys, get silly, but not that silly.
I have to imagine, were I ever given the opportunity, I'd have to steal something. I'd have to steal a line from good old Kassad from the Counter-Strike on the Hot Takes Point Made show, because every time Maui Snake opens his mouth, the first thing Kassad says, he just gives this look of pure disappointment. Are you insane? Like, just hitting a team with that after a fuck up? Like, I feel like that'd be... Not only would that hit like a truck, it'd also be funny as hell. Like, it's gotta be up there.
I just want to backtrack. Favorite thing I said in attack timeout was definitely near the end of attack timeout. I don't remember what game it was, whenever it was, but I remember I told Scoob to twerk on them. That was a favorite of mine that I said in attack timeout. Me and Scoob love, I don't know who started it out of the two of us, but one of us said hashtag twerkaholic one day or something. So like now we just say like hashtag twerkaholic, or like Scoob kills somebody and he teabags them, and I'm like, yeah, Scoob's twerking on him. It's like a whole thing.
I'll love Scoop, man. When I was doing Xenon co-streams, he came on my stream. He was like, "Dude, you're just bullying this guy. It's like, this is great. I want to be involved in that."
I love Scoop to death.
I love
top tier
Scoop.
vibes. I figured to close out because now's a good time to do it. Predictions on the upcoming matches, not just like today's, but also tomorrow's, and like I don't think we get enough of a read on what's going on to be able to talk about anything other than the next 2 days. But like, you know, what are your thoughts? Yeah.
So yeah. So July 12th here we got Sway versus CNE. Honestly, Beef Alarm or whatever, I don't think that game really plays an effect in anything in the grand spectrum of things. I think both those teams are gone regardless of who wins. However, I will say I think Sway will probably win it just because of Fragger potential. Like I've seen Reveal's been playing really good, kind of out of nowhere. The only player on the team that's really had an impact, I'd say.
You think Sway is going to be able to handle the playstyle of Sintenegra, or do you think that's just a non-factor?
If I can handle it, I think Sway can handle it. I'll say that. I dropped 9 kills on those guys. I was playing like an absolute moron, and they didn't shut me down. So, you know, I think Sway can handle it because I think they're the type of players that like to play like morons and get in there and have some fun. So I think that'll work out for them. Chunner versus CTB. Carry the boats. Huh. Now that's an interesting one. That's a real interesting one.
Do you believe in the old man? That's the question.
Do you I want Carry the Boats to win because I think they'll actually do something if they're given the opportunity to recover. But I gotta say, I'm a firm believer. I'm a firm believer that Senville's gonna get some absurd content creator buff. Because he got it once before in the quals against RTV. You cannot tell me that the man doesn't have, like, oh, we're down 4-6 against a team that should beat us in, like, this terrible situation. Let me just go clutch up. You can't tell me that man has, like, some X factor in him for that kind of bullshit. Just, like, oddly specific situation to pop off. But I believe it. I have faith.
I think Chunner's going to win, and here's why. Because Sunvale had all that experience in FPL getting shit on all day, every day by those pro players, and he would take it like a man. And you already know Yardy's going to be typing his balls off the entire game about Sunvale. And I think Sunvale's going to be able to take it, and Yardy's going to be distracting himself too much with that typing. That's my opinion on the subject. Let's see. We got.
What's the map count? 2-1 or 2-0?
Oh, okay. That's a tough one. I think it's definitely 2-1. I don't see a reality where Carry the Boats doesn't get a map at least, but
I mean, Wimpy did just have a career performance, so you would hope that he carries that on for the rest of the stage.
You know, Wimpy kid, man. Hopefully so. Man, what a player.
Let's see. That guy should be in Pro League for like 6 months, and then he got there and then he didn't do anything, and it just like, man. Thanks for ruining my tweets, bro.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid. That's how it goes, I guess.
Yeah.
July 13th. GGG versus Aerial Rise. Now that's going to be a game and a half. I'll tell you right now. I think that has the potential to be the best game we see in this entire thing. I would say Aerial Rise is going to close it out just because of, I feel like they definitely probably have more chemistry. I know GGG players have been playing together for a while and, you know, different environments and such, but I mean, Aerial Rise tried and true. I mean, it's Aerial Rise. I think that they'll pull that one out. Space Station versus Carnival, I'm taking Carnival. I'll be totally honest. I'll just zip right to that one.
I've heard a lot of people out on the SSG ACAD. Like, what's your reasoning? Like, why do you think they're gonna lose this, or like, what's going wrong with them?
I just don't think they've shown us anything like that we would expect out of a team like that. I don't think they've shown us that like real spark, like that domination. Against like a team like Outlast, and no offense to Outlast, but I mean, I would expect SSG ACAD. I expected them to walk into that game and maybe get like a 7-1 or a 7-2.
I think most people did. I think I was on track of saying Outlast was going to get bodied, and Ali said it was going to be close in round, but in round count it was going to be pretty one-sided. So yeah, we all kind of got egg on our face on that one.
I'm also excited to see how FET is going to have an effect on Carnival.
Ooh, that's good. That's a good angle.
FET, I don't have personal experience with FET, but from every angle I've heard about FET, it's that he is probably the best coach we have in this game, period, in terms of the raw work he does, in terms of what he can do for a team. But the questions for me, and this is a cool narrative, is he putting that effort level into Carnival? Is he bringing all that to the table for Carnival? Or is he giving them a toned down version of Fed?
I feel like even if he is giving them a toned down version, that's still, I think it's still going to be at least like on par, if not better than what SSG ACAD's getting, especially because they still have Cohen, at least if I recall.
And if Filthy was coaching them last I knew too. I don't know if Filthy's still in the situation there.
If Cohen's giving 100% and Fet's giving like 50,
that's still a fair bit. Like, that dude's smart as hell. His 50% is probably better than most coaches, like 100.
His 50% is going to be like 110%.
I'll tell you, his 50 is probably better than my 100. I'll be totally honest with you.
That dude was doing his like aerodynamics homework at SI, like in the middle of people just in the middle of like a T3 get together. Like, the dude's smart as hell.
He's got the work ethic.
No, he's got the work ethic. He's got the brain for it. I have no doubt in my mind he's going to help somewhat.
Like, I also feel like he's not the kind of guy that's only gonna give like 50%.
That's what I feel like too.
Like, I feel like he's gonna get like, I don't think he's gonna give like 100 Carnival, but I think it's gonna be like 75, like 80%. Which
then if we flip the narrative though, is Carnival gonna utilize all 80% of that FET coaching to its maximum potential?
You would hope they put that much respect on a PL team. Like, because they got Mr. B coaching, or did they get FET coaching? I know they got coaching from one of the Beast Coast boys.
They got FET.
I'd assume...
I think Mr. B might have sat down with a couple of them individually, but I know FET's coaching the team itself.
Yeah, and I know they paid for at least one session beforehand. So, and I think I was talking to Amke, and he said that like it was pretty helpful or something. Might be gaslighting myself there, but like, if that's actually what happened, like I'd assume they put enough respect on FET.
Those guys want it, and like if they have the opportunity for someone who's like already made it and is that good to like sit down with them, I think they're gonna try to like squeeze everything they can out of that like 70-80% that FET's gonna give them.
Yeah.
And I don't doubt it. I mean,
it's like MK seems like an idiot if you just like watch him in interviews, but like if you actually he is not. He is so far from it. Like, if you actually...
He plays up to the camera.
He's a personality.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's amazing.
It's amazingly entertaining, but, like, don't let that make you think that he's just, like, a brain-dead Ashmain. No, he's not.
He is an excellent player with a ton of work ethic, and if he can get that kind of, like, coaching from FET, like, consistently, he's gonna use that.
Yeah.
Well, here's my take to close out on that game. Is I'll say, Twist. This is my little I don't know if it's a hot take. I guess it's just a prediction. Twist is going to drop 20 one of the 3 maps. That's what I'm saying. I think if they are utilizing FET to his full potential, Twist is going to benefit more than anyone else on that team.
Yeah. All right.
In my opinion, I think he has the tool, the learn tool more than the other ones.
I think Twist could go PL. Like, if they're like, I think there are a bunch of people that like I think there are a bunch of people that like could go to PL just because like they're gonna be orgs coming into the scene. They're gonna be building teams, right? But I think that like even like if the NL has 10 teams right now and it's just existing teams making changes, I think Twist could go to Pro League.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for some players to at least get tryouts after this. I think you look at a lot of like Osiris. Like, I think a lot of guys on that team might see some opportunities after E1, in my opinion. I think you look at a team like Slate, even though they're not playing the best. Rival, in my opinion, I haven't looked at the stats fully on a broad spectrum, but Rival, and I know I used to coach him, so maybe I'm biased, but he's been playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
From what I've seen out of them.
Yeah.
He's like been the lone bright spot after they've kind of fallen off.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they had like 2 people go 1-10 yesterday, didn't they?
Yeah.
It was not
honestly,
a pretty performance.
Like Woos and Wi-Fi as well, I think are pretty good contenders for like at least tryouts. Especially like Wi-Fi plays the game for like 12 hours a day, and he's a vocal flex like that can shoot back real good. Like unironically, like he actually I think is a really good candidate to replace Achieved on DZ.
I want to see the Packer return. I know it's not going to happen because so many T1 GMs. So many GMs just take the opportunity that they assume like, oh well, you can pub stomp in T2, but like you had one opportunity in T1 and you bungled it. So you're
PB ruined his
you're just
career.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like
He didn't deserve
like
that.
Quartz.
They
Yeah.
didn't use
it was
him
a
right.
poison
They didn't use
chalice.
him right.
It was a poison
Yeah.
chalice. Like same
Oh,
thing
yeah.
with Asian. Like Asian has the
Or,
talent. He has the potential. Are we ever going to
Quartz and
see him get an
Mirage.
opportunity if he can't like force his
yeah.
way on for
Well,
relegation?
maybe
like-
he shouldn't have been an asshole then. Just saying.
Yeah. Or like I think one of the best examples as well is like Quartz. I think because Quartz has been
Yeah.
pro league level for a while, but he was on Mirage, so he looked bad.
Yeah.
And like Mirage is like I was talking to someone and I was saying that if it was like between like going to pro league and just like but playing for Mirage and just not, I wouldn't, right? Because like
Right.
Mirage is where your career goes to die. Like how many people are there that were on Mirage?
Churned out
that
and
were
never given
later,
another
like-
opportunity.
Yeah, like
And they have no
Asian-
other opportunity to prove themselves. That's
Like-
the absurd part. Like,
yeah, like you go to Mirage, you perform poorly because it's Mirage. Everyone assumes that you're bad, and then your career just like
it's over. Look at
doesn't
Marm.
necessarily. Or
Yeah.
like look at Mohasi. Like he was on Mirage, and he got them to a fucking major, and he didn't get another pro league opportunity after that, right? Or like Kento. Kento is really good. Kento is pro league level, but like he
Man,
was
I
on
forgot about
Mirage.
him. I feel like I haven't seen Kento
Like-
in like.
Like,
Oh my
I
God.
think he was playing
He
for
went
Aerial
from-
Academy, but it was kind of like a
Yeah.
last hurrah for
He-
XGS.
Like he went from
Mhm.
Mirage to Ariel Academy, and it's like he should be in pro league, right? But like the opportunity he got,
It
was Mirage.
also doesn't help that we're down to like 7 teams in this league.
Yeah.
So not all, and a
So-
lot of the other regions have 8 to 10, 8 for like the
Yeah.
smaller regions. Honestly, it's a miracle that something like Japan League can even have 8 teams. But
yeah.
then we have less teams in NAL than Japan
Yeah.
League.
Well, like,
Japan League
like-
has like a bunch of pug stacks, orgless
Hierarchy,
teams.
we have the most hungry we have the most hungry competitors. I'd argue.
Yeah.
So, well, I can't speak to the other regions necessarily, but I feel like we have a lot of people and a lot of teams that are hungry and that want this and they dream of this.
We have enough talent to make 10
Like,
competitive teams. Like
there's some,
even if
like-
we look at the veteran talent, like Eclipse wasn't done. He just didn't have another opportunity because all the orgs wanted new blood,
Yeah.
and there's no
The
like
fact that
lower ranked
Eclipse-
team that wanted to invest.
The fact that Eclipse was not in pro league after DZ, the fact that DZ dropped them to begin with is a crime, but the fact that he didn't get another opportunity afterwards is like a war crime. Like
Yeah.
he was so good. He could help with IGLing.
He
too. Like,
literally
was very
played
vocal with
every
Canadian.
role over his
Like-
time in DZ. It was actually
Inclu-
absurd.
Like he is done. Like and he took it all in strides. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't
He
like
performed.
like it's like everyone can play every role, right? Like I can play Hard Breach. However, you should not put me there if you want to win, right? But he wasn't.
Right.
But like he could play everything and be good at it.
Mhm.
Like even like Canadian taught him to IGL, so he'd have help with the calling as well. Like he had IGL experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Learning from like fucking Canadian, like there was so much potential that guy brought, but like he didn't fit the play style they wanted,
Mhm.
Yeah. It's just
or like fucking
I wrote a
Kool-Aid as
piece.
well, like got
Yeah,
dropped,
Kool-Aid
and then
too.
like he should have been in pro league after, he was dropped. Like the 8-team league made me very sad because like
there's
there
too
are
much
so-
talent here for it. And
Yeah.
like there's not a robust enough T2 circuit for me to have
Yeah.
any faith or any incentive
Yep.
for these players to stick around after they've been like given their shot.
Yep.
Like I wrote a piece about the Poison
Yeah.
Chalice that is signing to the wrong NAL team, but also at the same time, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
Say no to a life-changing like gig? What if
Yeah,
what if
right.
you're the missing piece? What if you are the piece that unironically will turn Mirage from like the laughing stock of the NAL to the best team in the world? You have to take that chance. You have to, as a competitor,
And I'd
as someone
argue
who
that's
wants to do
Drip's whole
this.
agenda. I'd argue that's like Drip's whole agenda as a coach is like he really wants like, and you can tell he's passionate about it, like through
Yeah.
how he talks about it. Like
100%.
he wants to turn that team around. Like that's what his goal is fully
Yeah.
at this point.
The only
Yeah.
issue is that it's Mirage, so like the people who are actually like good aren't gonna join him because it's Mirage, right?
Yeah.
Like especially like with the reputation that like they kind of have for like where your career goes to die. Like he's gonna get like the left, like for Pro League talent, he's gonna get the leftovers of people who are dropped and couldn't find another offer.
He's playing
and for
Moneyball
like,
pretty much.
yeah,
Yeah.
and for like
He
T2
has to
players,
invest in T2.
he's gonna get the leftovers again. Like, but he's still gonna get the leftovers in T2, right? Because it's like, you have like Twist, Woos, Wi-Fi, like CZ, like those types of people that could be in Pro League. If like Wi-Fi is like DZ and like Mirage, why would you take Mirage? It's Mirage, right? Like even if you didn't like the role on DZ, it's still fucking DZ. And more importantly, they can actually pay him because Mirage still hasn't paid Marm.
Yeah.
Like to my knowledge.
I think what Mirage is getting away with is just horrendous. I honestly
Another problem
They-
that
they
would have been
shouldn't be in
solved with
NAL.
relegation. You know, they've had
Yeah.
they've been saved from relegation many a time by
Yeah.
the simple removal of it.
Like,
And we've missed out on a lot of good teams coming up,
So,
like
I
in
actually-
RTV.
I actually want to talk about that, right? Because
Yeah.
like, I kind of understood why relegation wasn't a thing, or like as much like I personally think there should be relegations after every stage, right? But like when you have a LAN league, that's not really feasible.
The trouble
but-
came with Ubisoft's attempts
with
to make like a
franchising.
closed league, which it's just a
Yeah.
franchise league. Like
Like,
let's not call it something fancy. It's a
like-
franchise league. The idea
Like,
is that the orgs buy in, like a Flashpoint
like,
or
I
a
think
Riot.
that, like the thing is like, a lot of T2 players already had a reputation for just playing for stats because like you had to, right? Because if
Yeah.
you were on like a mid-tier team and like the top tier teams weren't interested, then like you had to. But then like there weren't many teams in tier 2 like whenever like reality TV was a thing that were like teams. Like RTV was grinding like to be a team, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like a bunch of individuals who just wanted to get to Pro League. Like it was a team
Wanting
that
to
wanted
go
to
up.
get to Pro League, right? And they practiced like that. But there was no incentive to do that, right? Because like
It
there
was
wasn't
literally just the pursuit of glory. That was
Like-
all that was powering them, which makes
like,
it
I
all
feel-
the more impressive.
Yeah. Like I feel like if you have relegation, like then it's like, well, if we build a team and practice together as a team and really stick together, then there's a chance we can qualify for Pro League through relegation. But since there's no relegation, it's like, well, if I look good in these Element 1 games, then maybe DZ gives me a tryout, and that could be my ticket in. Right? Because like you don't have many like I feel like without LAN, there's no reason not to have relegations other than like the closed league. Like
But-
just do
Look at the look at the quality of the orgs that we're letting into the closed league and we're letting stick around.
Exactly.
Are we really better off with an unsponsored, unpaid
There, it
Ugg
is a
stack
pro-
versus
so,
some of these other orgs?
the Astralis Corps, they wanted, at least to my knowledge, they wanted to stick together in NAL after Astralis like left the scene. But Ubisoft was like, well, you have to have an org because that's the way the system is designed, right? And they couldn't stay together as an orgless team. But Mirage gets to just like stick around despite having not paid players they had like a year ago.
Yeah.
Like that's
sad.
yeah.
It's also hell in a cell for like actual true blue support players.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a really good enabler, if you're a really good
Exactly.
supportive element, Giddy's the prime example. Giddy is the like go-to
Giddy's the
example now
lifeblood of
of
his
this.
team.
He
Giddy's
was
like the lifeblood.
enabler. He was the enabler of reality TV, and he was the only one to not get
Yeah.
given a shot at like Pro League, and that's
Yeah.
a shame. And he
like,
has
you
no
look
other
at-
avenues. He can't force
Yeah.
his way in. So what's
Or
he to
if
do
you,
but retire? It's a fucking crime.
Or if you look at like, there are even players in like T3, T4. Like I think Rin's a good example where like that's what Rin does is he hard enables. He makes the people around him exponentially better. But there's no like room for that on a lot of teams because they're not looking for that. They're looking for a guy that can shoot their gun, right? But it's like if you build like an actual team, a player like that's invaluable.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I remember who it was, but I was watching like someone stream and they were talking about how like he was tricky because like he doesn't have the gun skill that a lot of people have, but like if you kill him, then he just IGLs from the death, and then it's like, well, now everyone else is fucking Bolo, and there
Yeah.
aren't many people like that. But it's like if you don't have like a team, then like you're not gonna benefit from that because it's just a dude who can't shoot back good.
Yeah.
And I'd even say like if you ask, I'd bet if you ask most pros and pro league coaches, the thing that a lot of these teams look for is professionals and people that know how to behave in a team environment, and they
Yes.
know how to They know
Yeah.
how to work with people, and they're a people person. And when you create an environment at the T2 and T3 level where
that's encouraged.
you're rewarding people that are gonna team bounce and people that are gonna stat chase and
Yeah.
people that don't like. I think the perfect example and like the first example we've seen of it was probably Asian, to be totally honest. Like, you know, he came in and he was a great player and everyone knew him as a great player, but then you
Yeah.
put him in a team environment, an actual team, and
Yeah.
look how it went.
Yep.
You know, there's other examples out there, I'm sure, but that's just
Yeah.
the one that came
I mean,
to mind for
that's-
me.
Like that, I mean, and like that's why reality TV was so heavily poached by everyone, because they were like a team, right? It's like the thing is like if you build a system that benefits people in T2 and T3 to be actual teams instead of just like pug stacks, even the teams that aren't at the top level, it still benefits you because like I might be on like a mid-tier CL team, but I know how to function in a team. And maybe like a low-tier pro league team takes looks at that and goes, "You're maybe not as good, but you're a team player, and so we could benefit from that. And maybe you could be good if you were given like a better environment or more time to practice, or like our pro coach."
Yeah,
Like,
I also think you go on, but you go.
Yeah, it's something quick anyway. I'll be honest. Like, I think also, like, you talk about all the skill won't matter. Like, you can have all the skill in the world. If you're an asshole, no one's going to want to scrim 6
Yep.
maps a day with you. No one's going to want to
Yep.
scrim with you at 3 East and then 7 East again if you're going to
Yep.
be a dickhead the entire time.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Like whenever Caliber Jacob did an interview with Skies after like the DZ changes, and the thing he highlighted first about Gavini was his attitude.
Yeah.
Like, because he had a very team-oriented and improvement-oriented attitude, which is what you want. But like, and even if you don't try, but even if you want that attitude when you are in CL, like if you're having to stat chase to look good, that's not conducive to that kind of attitude, because it's very individual focused.
Yeah. I do think had the original reality TV, the Stage 3 reality TV, gone into SI Open Quals, I think they would have been at SI 100%.
Yeah.
Over that walking corpse of SSG, that, like, Frankenstein of Mirage, and then who was their competition? TSM? That was, like, they were good after the roster changes, but, like, it looked like it was Bolo's last hurrah. If I had to guess, like, that was his last hurrah. You know, that's a very beatable team. Reality TV had one real opponent to go up against before booking their ticket into Montreal, unless like Gavini and Packer were poached, and like even then they still upset SSG once.
The thing is, I don't think like Gavini would have left. Like if RTV had a relegation game, they would have won it.
Yeah,
they would have been
100% over Beast Coast or fucking Mirage. Are you kidding me?
I don't think that any of the players that left leave RTV if they win the relegation game and can be in Pro League.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh yeah.
Like
Definitely.
obvious, like every Challenger League team that has gone to Pro League has done like some rebuilding at some point, but for at least like a stage, they stay exactly the same. Right?
The same thing happened with Parabellum when they got brought up. Like, you give it a shot. You have to see if the magic can hang.
And with that lineup, they go to SI, right? Like it would have been close with TSM, but it would have been a hell of a game to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also I think they would have gone, and I think they would have done fairly well.
They would have done better than SSG. Look, it's not a high bar.
Yeah. No, they wouldn't have just laid down and died like SSG did. Like, they would have been fighting to the bitter end. And then, like, with Fett and Mr. B on the same team, like, they come back home and then, like, they take that. And then, like, they're like a mid-tier, like, Pro League team at least.
I mean...
Because, like, even with Beast Coast, I was surprised we haven't really seen, Hats there, I guess, but you don't... I was really expecting to see, like, Mr. B to give Packer that next shot. And maybe that's still in the cards sometime in the future if Packer's been working. But, I don't know. It seems like now when people, like we've said, before in this, when people get shut out and they've had that opportunity, what's the incentive anymore? Besides pure passion. If you have that much passion for the game, obviously keep working. Like, I'd argue even, like, and this is why I wasn't a huge believer in SSGA right away. Like Snake, like what's the incentive for him? Was my thought going into that. It's like yeah, he's playing under SSG. That's awesome. He's already played under TSM. The Brights don't get much brighter than playing with Bolo under TSM, anyways. What's the incentive for him? Okay, he wants to win this league. Okay, he wants to boost his ego a little bit, but what are the long-term repercussions? Will Snakes, a tryout? Will he?
In theory, the value of going to an academy team like SSG Academy is like, if you show that you're a valuable team member, in theory, you're gonna get called up. You're gonna get given a shot for SSG main, and if the roles work out, if you're what they're looking for, that's your shot back in. So, from that sense, like that's probably Snake's only opportunity. So of course that would be the team that he has to go to for that opportunity, because otherwise, from what I understand, he has some attitude issues. All the other teams are gonna hear attitude issues. They're not even gonna try. So like this is his shot.
I didn't even think that like being called up from SSG Acad to main is like gonna be much of a thing.
Yeah, because
like Snake would have been a better, because for the role that Merc filled, Snake would have been a better player than Ashen, but they went with Ashen because Ashen is just a better player and they can make the roles work in other places. Yeah, like Ashen can do everything. I wouldn't be surprised if he was just like the greatest sentry of all time, just like lying in wait for fucking Call Out to get his hands on him.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'd say, like if you pick up Snake instead of Ashen in that situation, then someone else on SSG leaves. Now you're kind of left with a hole. But now that you have Ashen, I feel like someone else leaves. Like, yeah, you have a hole there, but Ashen is gonna fill. He's gonna fill.
Like,
yeah,
it makes finding new players easier.
Yeah,
like because he can fill. If he can fill anything, like either he fills a gap that immediately got filled in whatever role he plays, like be it hard entry or like flex, or like hard support's kind of hard to fill, or like Forrest pretty much got that. But like if you lose Houghton, Ashen can do that, and then like whatever Ashen was playing, you can find a player or whatever role is easiest to fill.
Works best. Yeah.
It's a lot more flexible than like a dedicated role player that Snake is, which is just like frag out on entry ops. Like,
which, like, by the way, the ability, like, if you have a player who can genuinely play like several roles and do them all well and still frag out, that is so valuable.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of like where Jin and I are with team we're building. Like, we can both do just about anything, and we can both IGL and shot call. So it's like,
just bring people in to fill the gaps.
We could pick up any combination of roles, and it would still work out, right? I think the only thing neither of us can really do is like play hard breach. But like, we could pick up an IGL and that would be fine. We could not pick up an IGL and that would be fine. We could pick up 3 supports and that would be fine. We could pick up, 2 entries and a flex, 2 entries and a support, like whatever, and all of it would work.
Yeah.
Or like, when your LFT is like an individual, if you can play everything to a high level, like that also is very beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how I was. I could play anything from hard support to second entry. I just get in the lobby and I just do it, man.
Yeah.
Just do it. You just put it out. You get in the mode.
Yeah.
Just don't make me spearhead because you'll lose the game. But other than that, you put me in, I'll do it.
I was like kind of similar. I could play everything from like soft support to first entry. Just don't put me all the way on the back because I don't do well on that role. I don't know why. I just can't play hard support for shit.
Hard support for me, it's like I'm either like 1 week I'll be the greatest hard support of all time, and then a week, like the next week, I like can't do literally anything, and like I don't understand it. Hard support and me have a very tumultuous relationship. But
I mean that's just the nature of a role. That's why you don't go there if you want to drop nukes. Like that's just
yeah, right.
Like that.
You have to have a very strong mental.
Look,
unless you're skunky, that means
the fact that even with the AK-12, like, I think if Ace wasn't a fire and forget utility operator, like if you just throw your fucking Selmas in 90% of situations, that's all you have to do to like have done your job as the Ace player. Like if he didn't have that kind of like easy util, I think if you had to do like thermite tricking or doing Hibana shenanigans, and he still had the AK-12, like the fraggers would not gravitate towards him, or they would and they just wouldn't use the utility, because like it's the fact that he's so easy and he's got VAK12 that makes it like accessible, and you just toss whoever you want on there. Whereas like for an actual hard support op, like we're gonna default to Ace because you get VAK12. Why wouldn't you? Like, duh. But you know, when it's crunch time, when you're on the 5.56, when you're on the Type 89, these guns have actual kick. They have actual like bad stats. You got 21 rounds, or you've got a slow as balls fire rate and low damage. You know, you've got something wrong with you. Yeah,
I'm not on speaking terms with 5.56.
Don't worry, I am. I love ACOG. It's like one of 5 guns with ACOG, dude. I gotta be on speaking terms with it.
The Hippie's gun though, the amount of times I've ran out of ammo and looked like a complete goofball, like twerking in a corner because of it, you know, that's... And then I put the bearing 9 and whiff even harder.
Hip shoddy solves all problems. The Supernova's nasty.
So
I mean, it has just as much range as the primary pretty much.
So we have run a little bit over the amount of time we wanted to, which is fine, right? I think it's good to keep...
We're here for a good time and a long time.
It's been a very insightful conversation, but we should probably look at bringing it to a close soon. So, in your opinion, Wumbo, out of everyone who is in Element 1, who do you think is most deserving of a Pro League spot, and what team would you want them to go to?
Wow, that's a good question.
It could be on your team, it could be anyone from Element 1. Or fuck it, if you think there's someone outside of Element 1 that you think is more deserving than anybody in Element 1, then that's
a tryout, or do I think that I should be on a roster?
That deserves like a spot.
Well, I'll say, I guess this is a cop-out answer to start, but I'll give you another answer. I think almost anyone on Aerial probably deserves a spot by now if they are willing to split. I love that they're staying, like they've been a team for so long. It kind of, in a sense. Otherwise, honestly, and once again, I guess it's my bias. I'll say Rival on Slate. I think that guy. When I worked with him, he constantly asking me after every scrim and DMs, "What did I do today? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do?" And it shows through. He's improved so much over time, and he's showing out in Element 1. And I think that he deserves an opportunity to at least get a chance to prove that he can do it against a higher tier of players.
And what roster would you say that he would be best suited for out of the current Pro League rosters?
See, I think he could fit in on DZ. I know he's friends with Gavini. I mean, maybe he's got that lined up. Maybe I don't know about that, but
there's a reason he's popping off. He's like, "Yo, Gav, you watching me right now? You watch this?"
Yeah, he's probably in the DMs like, "Tune into the E1 game, about to drop a 20 piece or something." But I'd probably say DZ. Yeah, I'll go with DZ. I think it would just be best DZ because I also think if he had someone like, and I think that's Canadian, you could bring in somebody who doesn't have T1 experience or even necessarily like deep T2 experience, and I feel like Canadian could mold them into that type of player within a stage.
Yeah. I think Canadian is just that kind of guy, and he's proven it too many times where you can say it's a fluke. Like he's had too many. Yeah. The way he's found his success is different than Fabian. Fabian found like a working formula on G2, stuck with it, and made minor tweaks to stay up with the times. Canadian won with Continuum, was the second best for years, like literally second best of the best team in the world, like whatever in the history of the game. Okay, that's no small feat. Then he leaves that team, finds success with SSG, which is a completely new roster, no overlapping players, no overlapping coaches. Completely different team. Does the hammer again for a second time. Leaves that team. Joins Stark Zero. Completely new players. No overlapping players. No overlapping coaches.
Does it again.
Wins a major. And now we're here. Like he knows how to deal with new players and people that he's not used to working with.
I do not care what anyone else says. Canadian is the best IGL the game's ever seen. I don't think it's the greatest mind the game has ever seen, because I think it's pretty definitively Fabian at this point, but in terms of, actual, in-game leader, I think Canadian's the best the game's ever seen.
Yeah, he
just... so many different metas, so many different players, and he wins with all of them, that's fucking crazy.
That's the leadership part. He's spec'd far into leadership. He's still got the mind for a game, but the leadership is just what pushes him over the edge.
I'll extend my answer a little bit. I'll give you some more players just off the top of my head without teams. I'll give you, I think, Woos, I think... Ozone deserves a chance, in my opinion. I like Ozone a lot as a player. Let's see. Quick glance over. Honestly, and this might be a little bit of a hot take, and I've been a hater for a while. I think Bio kind of deserves another chance. Like maybe just a brief, like one more stage. Like you need somebody to build a team around. Maybe you bring Bio in for that.
Really?
Maybe. I think it's if they have an impressive, like if they go to playoffs and they like impress a little bit, make it a little far. I think he might deserve it. Just a little bit, but I don't think it'll happen. I think that's a long shot.
I think he's great at developing players. I mean, he's just had his time in the sun. Yeah. Dude's career's like 6-7 years long now. He was in Pro League in year 2. He's been there.
And he's been out of it for just as like he's been out of it for like a long time now too. As
there are a lot of tier 1 teams that like will look to him for like who they should pick up for like young talent, but none of them look like at him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Vipo and Scoob are my last two, by the way. My own guys. Vipo and Scoob, they deserve shots.
Gotta have a bias.
Vipoa definitely should be on a team. Somebody fucking try out Vipoa if you're watching right now. Right now. Go DM Vipoa and say, hey, get in my
I'm here to poach your player.
I won't even be mad at you. I'll be so happy if you come and take Vipoa. Same with Scoob. Yeah. Scoob deserves it. Scoob can play. Scoob, I think he's building himself up now where he's put on some good performances, and I think he is kind of one of those players like we discussed with Ashen, where if he gets to like his full potential, he can be one of those players that you can slot in at 1 through 5 any role, and he'll have the same impact. Yeah. So, there you go. I'll put my own 2 guys in there so they don't get mad at me when I join the call back later,
Now the other three get mad at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Now JetCon, Rai, and Turkey are going to be like, what the hell, man? Why didn't you say we deserve Pro League tryouts?
What about the collegiate duo?
All right. I think this is
I think we've got to reach a good ending point. So just before we end, where can people find you, Wumbo?
Oh, Wum90 on Twitter. As like they have to put my name as that on everything. You just call me Wumbo. Stop putting the 9 in there, but it's Wum90. 9 instead of the B, on Twitter. Otherwise, WumboR6 on YouTube. I upload very inconsistently, and sometimes it's a good video, sometimes it's not. So, but
you could say the same thing about me.
Me too.
Otherwise, support my team, man. Come watch Taken Kings. Go follow Scuba Swag. Go follow Vipoa, whatever his ad is, and Turkey and Rai and JetCon. They're all really cool and sweet, sick guys. So give them some love.
All right.